Hey, what's up everyone? It's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and in today's video we are finally talking about the Stealth 700 Gen 3. There's been a lot of hype about this headset. I've been asked a lot about this in other videos, nothing related to gaming audio, which was really cool. I always like kind of seeing the excitement about it. So I'm going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about the different versions of the Stealth 700 Gen 3 so you know which one to get, how they perform and all that. I will compare it to the older 700 Gen 2 and then some brief mentions about how it compares to some other models from different brands in this price range. However, an in-depth comparison video will follow in a few weeks because frankly, that's a lot to cover and I don't want this video to be an hour long. Now, these headsets were sent to me for review by Turtle Beach. It won't affect what I say about it. If you've watched any of my videos in the past, you know that that holds no sway about my opinions and experience and all of that good stuff. I do have generic Amazon affiliate links in the description below if you want to purchase this. That does support the channel, but I don't have any kickbacks with Turtle Beach. And I don't make the videos for those links. It's just to help you find it and purchase it. Purchase it wherever you like, but I do hope you find the video helpful. Now, there's a lot of variants of the 700 Gen 3 you can purchase. So I want to start with the basics. And you can buy the Xbox version, the PlayStation version, or the PC version. Regardless of which platform you pick, it's available in black on all three. If you purchase the Xbox edition, not only do you have black, but you get this cobalt blue. And if you buy the PlayStation version, in addition to black, you get the white version. So there's no white version of the PC and there's no white version of the Xbox. There's also no cobalt version for PlayStation or PC. It's a little bit confusing, but if you look at the Turtle Beach website, you'll see your options. Basically, PC is black only and your console gives you the additional choice of blue for Xbox and white for PlayStation. Now, regardless of which platform you pick, there is still a lot of cross-platform compatibility. That's going to be a big talk about this video, and it will still give you similar specs. So all of these use a new 60mm driver. And I say new because the 700 Gen 2 used a 50mm nano clear. This being a 60 is a different driver, but it has been used in a prior headset. Now they all have an 80-hour battery life. They all have flip to mute mic, onboard 10-band EQ, etc. So there's a lot of similarities. What's unique about the PC version, and this is specifically on what's being advertised on the site, we will do a mic test later, but the PC edition can run at a higher sample rate. Instead of being locked at 48 kilohertz, you can do a sample rate of 96 kilohertz. And it has a higher sample rate advertised on the mic, but it was pretty much the same thing for me when I tried the Xbox version on PC using the USB dongle. Regardless of which version you buy, you get two dongles in addition to Bluetooth support. The Bluetooth is simultaneous, thank God, because I feel like a lot of new headsets, some of them are going away from that, and I'm pleased to say that this one, along with some other recent models, at least have that. Now, if you buy the PC version, you have two identical USB-C or USB-A dongles. One of these will work just fine on PlayStation or another PC or Mac, and the PC version will not work on Xbox. If you purchase the Xbox version, you get two dongles as well. One of them is labeled Xbox because there's an encryption chip that Xbox requires, kind of like a licensing thing. The other one will say USB. So what's cool about this is when you plug in the transmitters to a console and PC or two different consoles, like for example, I use this on my PlayStation and my Xbox, they both light up, and depending on which one you're connected to, you get a status light. Now I had like a yellowish amber light on the one I was not connected to, and if the mic was on, the transmitter light was green, the one I was connected to, and if I muted, the transmitter light would go red. If I press this little quick switch button on the right side of the headset, it would instantly switch to the other transmitter. No waiting 5 seconds or 10 seconds. It was a second or less every single time, and I went back and forth repeatedly. This is even on platform with Xbox and PlayStation. So the initialization is damn near instantaneous, and during that entire time, I could still use Bluetooth. Now, this is where the 700 Gen 3 to me is a killer headset, and that is the controls. There's a lot to love here. You have a mode button, which is going to toggle through all 4 EQ presets. Then you have a volume wheel, which is a digital spin volume wheel. So if you turn this up and down, it's actually going to increase your Windows volume. On Xbox and PlayStation, it doesn't affect those, so make sure those volumes are turned up, at least on the PlayStation side of things. This volume does adjust very quickly on Windows, so just be careful if you're playing something and then you just flip it up really fast. It's going to very quickly hit max volume, whereas console, the volume adjustment is slower. Now on the Xbox version, you have game to chat mix on this wheel, which is great. It's actually printed there, but you can reassign this for things like side tone volume if you want to hear yourself, and that does include even when you use it on Xbox. You have a USB charge port. This isn't recessed too much, which is good because if your cable ever fails, you can use any cable you want. Power button, press and hold a couple seconds to turn it on. And if you tap it, it enables and disables superhuman hearing, which we'll talk about how well or helpful that is later. Now this button is the quick sync button I mentioned before to toggle between dongles. So if this is on and you don't hear anything, just tap that in case you switch to the wrong one. This volume wheel is Bluetooth volume adjustment, dedicated for Bluetooth, so you have two separate controls. Again, you see the convenience here, and then a Bluetooth button here at the bottom. Pressing and holding puts it in pairing mode, and once Bluetooth is connected, if you tap that button, it also serves as an action button. So if you're getting a phone call, you can tap it to answer. If you're listening to music on the phone or even a YouTube video, tapping that will stop the media on the mobile device. So if you have an Xbox, it's simple. Buy the Xbox version. If you play on just PC or PC and PlayStation, then just go with the PC version, in my opinion. Unless you want white, get the PlayStation version in white. And that one still works on PC just fine. There's just a couple little PC specific features that the PC version has that the console versions don't. They are similar overall. And when you see the label on this wheel, it looks like a volume up and down. The default is microphone side tone adjustment. So it's how you can hear yourself through the headset. And that does still work, of course, on PlayStation. On PC, once you install Swarm 2 and set up the virtual audio driver, you can assign this to be game to chat mix on PC. So you have all the benefits that you want on the PC side of things from controls. It's not like game to chat is exclusive to Xbox. Does it through a virtual driver, but I'll take it. Now the general shape looks similar when you look at the outside of the ear pads compared to the older 700 Gen 2, but look how different the inside of the ear cups are. The older 700 Gen 2, if I go by millimeters, is about 40 to 41 millimeters wide. And on the newer 700 Gen 3, I'm hitting 50 millimeters. So that is a massive improvement. It's like almost 25% larger. Then you look at the height of this guy, I'm at just about 60 millimeters of height. And on the older one, I'm at just over 50. So, and then the depth is great too. I'm getting like just under 30 millimeters of depth here, if you can even catch that with the reflection. And on the front, I'm at 20 because it's a really big angle driver here. This was never like not deep. I'm still at 20 plus millimeters of depth. And on this side, I'm hitting 24, just again, because of the angle thing. They get very comfortable regardless, but the improvement of the ear pad opening means that regardless of how large your ears are, the 700 Gen 3 is a big improvement there. Now there's another huge improvement here on comfort, and that is clamp force. The 700 Gen 2 is known for having a strong clamp. I talked about the ear pads being like big pillows, but this headband basically squishes these pillows on your head. It's kind of like a vice-like grip. It doesn't go anywhere, but I actually built a 3D like head shape with a vertical scale, accurate to 0.01 grams. And I wanted to actually quantify clamp force. And I've been building this huge database. I'm up to about 30 or 40 now. I'll eventually share that, but it helps me compare the actual force of pressure from one headset model to the next. The 700 Gen 2 of all the models I've ever tested is the highest clamp force I've ever measured, approaching over 900 grams of pressure. And I checked my results against something like Ratings, which has done some clamp force pressure in the past. My small head version is about 15% below what Ratings measures, and I have my rig set up to simulate a large head, and that goes above what Ratings have. So I feel like my results are pretty damn accurate. I spent a lot of time building that. Over 900 grams of pressure. This is in the mid 500 grams of pressure. It was basically like a 40% reduction in clamp force. That cannot be understated enough, or overstated enough, I guess. It's a massive improvement in comfort. Not only are the ear pads larger, they are significantly more comfortable to wear because it's not squeezing your head as much. Now, this does not approach the Atlas Air, which is like a floating pillow on your head that has under 400 grams of clamp force, and that headset's also extremely light. So if purely comfort is your thing, I would still look at the Elite Atlas Air. But if you like the idea of the features of this and you want a close back to block out all that extra sound, this is a big improvement. Build quality on the headband is excellent. It's padded. I feel like the older one had a more dense fill. This has more like a thicker memory foam. You can see my glue is starting to come off a little bit up here. This pad wraps around more, and frankly, it looks more premium because when you look at the yoke, this is all metal, like heavy metal. This actually increased about 30 grams in weight over the older 700 Gen 2 because it's just built a little bit more robustly. This is a metal reinforced headband, but this part here is all plastic. So I wish this part was all metal because I would feel a little bit stronger, but I guess it's reinforced with metal on the inside. I couldn't take that apart without risking breaking it. Now, some people are going to be concerned about this. The older version, I think the new version looks better, but the older version was a traditional double hinge pivot. Also very easy to adjust. This one is noticeably more stiff. I mean, I actually have to move it to get it to adjust. So if you're putting it on your head and you feel like the sound is off, I mean, it'll hold its shape off. You have to kind of snug it, press it in a little bit to get a good seal, make sure everything's nice and even. So I know people are going to be concerned about this single hinge mechanism, so naturally I took this thing apart. I wanted to see how it was built inside. The Novas from SteelSeries have a similar hinge design, or singular hinge design, and that was reinforced through plastic. Some of those have not held up as well. I feel like the Nova was an improvement because you have less reported issues of that breaking. This has a big reinforcement piece inside, but it is all plastic and there's two like heavy duty screws. I hope it will hold up well. There is noticeably less flex on the 700 Gen 3 than any of my Nova headsets on this hinge. And when I adjust it, I actually get a little bit more flex up here depending on the angle. Now the ear pads are removable, and even if the outside looks similar, they are very different on the mounting mechanism. On the 700, you have this detachable gasket, which to me was much more convenient, and I would much rather deal with this for replacing it. This has a traditional rubber gasket. You would just peel it off, and that's all you have to do to remove it. And look how angled that giant 60mm driver is. Now, I think on the gray and silver it looks better. I like it more than the copper gold color. Now the 700 Gen 3 is slightly louder than the 700 Gen 2 as well, and it's not by much, but the 700 Gen 2 was already pretty loud. So I measured almost identical output from both, doing the same test over and over. I got 103.5 decibels on the PC version and 103.3 decibels on the Xbox version when being tested on PC. Basically just firing a gun very loudly in Call of Duty in the firing range to see how loud I can get the headsets to measure, and I used a calibrated SPL meter. The older 700 Gen 2 did 101.4 decibels. All of these volumes are too loud to listen to for extended periods of time. That will damage your hearing, but it's just to help kind of quantify what the maximum overhead is, so you know what you're working with. Now the other thing I like to test is something called the toilet test, because let's face it, when you have a wireless headset, you don't always stay in the exact same spot next to your transmitter. And I have to preface this because I don't always do this, and that's my apologies. When I talk about wireless performance and stability and range, that's very specific to my environment and your environment. If you have very different Wi-Fi infrastructure, if you will, at your home or apartment or wherever you may be, all of those things will generate different levels of interference. You go through different types of wall material, so the range will vary. I can only share mine. Going through two walls which are not secondly insulated. One wall has extra insulation, which does affect wireless performance, but I can go over 50 feet away from the transmitter, which is right on line with many other headsets I've tested. And in the same room with all these transmitters connected, and I do a torture test where I have like 4 or 5 transmitters from different devices connected at a time, just to try and generate some noise. This thing was rock solid, so they've been making a lot of improvements on the transmitter side for the last few years. And lastly, it connects very quickly. Within seconds of turning the headset on, it's connected to Bluetooth within a second or two, and on the dongle less than a few seconds. The older 700s took longer to pair, so that was also improved. Now there's a lot of things that Turtle Beach obviously improved upon with the chassis, the comfort, the controls. All of these things are excellent. And there's a couple things that we're still hoping for more improvements on, if I am to be honest. So one of them is the firmware update process, which has been an issue for a lot of headsets in general, and this one had some of its own growing pains. Now, I have to preface, one of the benefits of receiving these headsets early is I can release a video close to launch date to help you decide if you want to purchase this or not. The downside though is I'm usually getting pre-release software and firmware updates that don't represent the public version. Part of the reason why I wanted to delay this is because I wanted as close to the production spec firmware as possible. So what I can at least closely represent what your ownership experience would be. The firmware update process, just to be blunt, is a little bit of a pain. You have 2 transmitters and Bluetooth. As of now, the update through Swarm 2 on PC, if you install Swarm 2 on PC to do the update, has not worked well for me. I actually bricked one of my headsets temporarily because of the process, and I told Turtle Beach, and we're already exchanging crash logs and all that stuff so we can troubleshoot it. It could have just been that my Swarm 2 software crashed and it had nothing to do with the headset, but I was advised to wait on using Swarm 2 on PC to do the firmware update. So what happens is, what you have to do on the Xbox version is connect the Xbox transmitter to an Xbox, close proximity to a PC. The USB transmitter connects to your PC, and then you will connect your headset via Bluetooth to your phone. Download the Swarm 2 app on your mobile device, and then you could do the firmware update process from there, which takes less than 10 minutes. Once you have done that, then you could proceed with using Swarm 2 on PC. And when you plug it in, it's going to say that Swarm 2 also has an update. Depending on the version you got, your update will include special drivers to make the Stealth 700 Gen 3 work properly. And if you bought the PC version, you'll get a second layer of installation to install the Waves Audio virtual audio driver. And this is to give you the game to chat mix and some of the other enhancements that it has to improve sound quality. So going back to the performance side of things, this is what my voice sounds like using the microphone on the 700 Gen 3. Now, I think the microphone sounds okay, I'll be honest. And if you are a loud-spoken person, like I'm speaking loudly for this video, I don't normally talk this loud when I play. And if you're softer spoken, I think the microphone sounds better in that regard. It seems to have some kind of a clipping effect if you talk loud, almost like these micro pops in the mic. I don't hear anything through the side tone, but I'm sure there's been a couple times where you could hear some artifacts or processing. Now, they advertise AI on the mic for noise reduction. Frankly, I don't see it. This is with noise gate disabled right now, so maybe that's why, and I will turn the noise gate on, but this is what my keyboard typing sounds like, and I'm using the new Turtle Beach Vulcan 2, which actually has Hall effect switches on it, which is kind of cool. So I'm going to start typing on this just so you can hear the background noise. I'm typing pretty loud as well. So if I set the noise gate up to 50, we're going to turn that 50, and then I'm going to toggle it. I just heard a beep on here, and it does affect how I hear my side tone just a little bit. So I'm going to start typing again. Now I'm talking while I type. So it does help to an extent. It's not perfect, but keep in mind, if you go too aggressive, it's going to make your voice clip out a lot. So the problem with noise gate is it's a threshold to open and close the mic function. It's great for getting rid of background noise like PC fans and stuff like that. But if you're a soft-spoken person, you have to dial back your noise gate. Otherwise, you will cut out a lot and your friends won't always hear what you're saying. Now I want to show you the rest of the software on Swarm 2, at least with the Xbox edition, and then I'll quickly switch over to the PC version. So you can already see audio, you have master volume here, and my volume control on the side is turning that on and off. If I hit that power button and tap it, you can see that I just turned on superhuman hearing, and there's 3 different modes: legacy, footsteps, and gunshots. I'll talk about this after because this is actually a pretty awesome feature. Microphone settings on the right hand side, and of course it's flip to mute, and you can toggle mute in the software. So we're going to turn superhuman hearing back off, and I'm going to scroll down. So you have different EQs you can apply. There are some onboard presets that you can do, and this is basically flat. So when you do the signature sound, it looks like this, but it has its own DSP built in. If I go to create custom preset, I can make my own, and it will save to the headset. This is really important for you console gamers out there if you want to fine tune the sound. So, and I did that on the PC version. Because I recently re-updated the firmware, it wipes my onboard presets. So I'll have a screenshot of the EQ that I was using earlier. And then the software side of things is really cool because you can effectively create as many as you want. You're not going to run out of space for onboard memory. So if you have a lot of different profiles and you want to name it differently, the PC software, that's one benefit, is you can run more than just what the onboard is able to save, which I believe is 4 presets if I'm not mistaken. Now in PC mode, even on the Xbox version, you can customize what that secondary wheel does. I talked about it being game to chat mix for Xbox, and technically the PC version has game to chat mix as well once you reassign it. But on PlayStation versions and this version, the Xbox version on PC, you can adjust the wheel for mic monitoring to hear yourself, bass boost, treble boost, or noise gate. I don't think you need to play around with bass and treble boost personally, but the mic monitoring is one thing to consider. Mic monitoring is fantastic on this headset. It's really clear, there's no delay, doesn't sound distorted or distracting. It's always been a strong suit of Turtle Beach, and I'm pleased to say that continues here. Now on the console side of things, if I tap this, you can see that it has chat volume, and if you don't care to adjust game to chat mix on Xbox, it's pretty cool that they still let you reassign it for that as well. So here are the functions. Again, pretty much the same thing as before, but you get the benefit of adding chat. If I scroll down, you have some hotkeys you can assign to make it do different things. I'm not one to typically mess with that. So if you have a Windows key and you want it to effectively change a setting on the headset, you can assign it to do that. Now this has an 8-hour battery life, 80 and 87%. You can see I have quite a bit left here. On the bottom, you can change the LED brightness on the transmitter. So if you don't like seeing the light on the dongle, you can effectively turn it off. The auto shut off is pretty self-explanatory. And the voice and tone prompts, I like leaving on to an extent because you know if you accidentally hit something, I wouldn't recommend turning it off. It usually uses tones, but if you're connected to a phone, it'll say like Bluetooth connected or Bluetooth paired. So you'll have a mix of beeps and voices.
Okay, so now we switched over to the PC version of the 700 Gen 3, which the microphone does actually sound a little bit better. It has the benefit of running at a higher bandwidth. You could see on the Swarm 2 software on the left side, it says high bandwidth audio, and we're at 24-bit 96,000 hertz or 96K, and the microphone shows 16-bit 48. Now, I have the same general controls. I have volume here. I have game to chat mix now showing up on Swarm 2, so I can fade back and forth between game and chat once you've installed the software. You have Chat Boost, which has different profiles, the Waves 3D if you want to enable that, which I don't usually use that myself on this. I actually think the superhuman hearing is a really cool trick that this headset has, and it's already at the setting I like because I was using this one earlier. So the other software part is the same up here. Now, I didn't show this with the 700 Gen 3 Xbox edition, but this does exist for that too. The difference is obviously there's a little bit more clarity here, but you still get different audio profiles. You can't customize the mic profile like you can with the Stealth Pro, but it's nice that you have 4 options, and that does save to the headset, so console players will benefit from this. This is the signature sound. If I switch to full, I get 2 beeps in the headset, and this is what my voice sounds like on the full EQ preset. 3 beeps, and this is what my voice sounds like using the clarity preset. 4 beeps, and again, pretty much real time, and this is what my voice sounds like using the smooth preset.
So now I want to talk about sound quality from an objective standpoint first, to take my opinion out of it, because this is basically a scientific measurement of each headset. It helps me identify channel imbalance, sharp peaks and treble, or lacking of bass, too much bass, etc. Doesn't mean anything necessarily is good or bad, it's just how the rig hears it, and then depending on what your preference is and how you hear it, that might change a little bit. So when we look at the sound signature of the Stealth 700 Gen 3, this is actually a pretty good sound signature for a sub $200 gaming headset out of the box with no EQ. It preserves the signature Turtle Beach sound. It's a punchy bass, it's enveloping, there's a lot of big impact, and those 60mm drivers here are put to good use on the bass delivery side. Now, I will explain how this translates to from an actual observable sound quality, you know, what we would hear and play with, but you can see that there is emphasized bass. This left side, the higher the line, the stronger the bass is. The mids are relatively flat, which is great. It's not too recessed, so it's going to sound good for vocals and guitar instruments. You know, different music genres in general will still sound pretty good on this headset, so it's versatile enough in the sound profile department. This peak that you see up here closer to 3K, that's not by much. We were talking like a decibel or 2 over the Harman curve for how my rig compares. Now, it comes across a little bit sharper than that to me when I hear it. And then this region here, I like that it's scooped because it's more relaxed. It's not like too sharp or too detailed in my ear. And then you have typical elevated upper treble. Now, most Turtle Beach headsets and a lot of gaming headsets have a peak close to 8,000 hertz, and I'm a little sensitive to that. I want to show you how this compares to the older 700 Gen 2 Max, also in signature sound. The Gen 2 Max had a more linear sub-bass extension, so the bass sounded a little bit deeper. The new one sounds a little bit more punchy and thick or warm sounding, but it doesn't have the same like sub-bass frequencies that I observed, at least out of the box. Now, it's exasperated by the fact that the 700 Gen 2 had a scoop in the mids. This area here means the bass sounded even stronger because you're not getting the same detail presentation in the mid-range. Very colored sound, very much a strong V shape. Now, the lift in the higher frequencies also comes in a little bit sooner, and the older 700 Gen 2 will sound almost a little bit shouty, like you're cupping your hands around your mouth when you speak. That affects sound quality a little bit. And I also mentioned the 8,000 hertz peak being a little sharp. The 700 Gen 2, which was still a good sounding headset, was sharper in 8K. So aside from this having a slightly thicker bass delivery without the same depth, in pretty much every other regard, it's a better sounding headset. Now, there are different profiles, and I'm going to close out the Stealth 700 Gen 2 in a moment. So here's the Gen 3. If you scroll down on the site and hit the plus, I measured the other EQ settings because I want to show you something awesome. So bass boost is the red line. You can see there's a massive uplift in bass. If you're a bass chaser, that is going to deliver. I'm going to hit the plus again here. Bass and treble boost, let's change the color. You can see that you're getting more of a bass lift, a little bit of a scoop in the mids at this point because this is being averaged out. So it looks like it's scooped. That's just because the treble is also stronger. So as a whole, it's more of a V-shaped sound, hence bass and treble boost. If I click the plus again, now we're going to go to vocal boost. Vocal boost, it leans off the bass a little bit. There's a little bit of a lift here at 1K. This isn't a bad preset actually for some FPS games. If you don't want to mess with any custom EQ, just simply toggling this on makes it pretty good for competitive gaming. However, my favorite one, I'm going to hide this, is you leave it on signature sound and you enable superhuman hearing, and you can set it to guns or footsteps mode. Remember I showed you before there's 3 different presets for superhuman hearing. That's this new line. So it keeps the frequencies emphasized at the 110, 120 hertz area, which is pretty common, especially in games like Call of Duty. This also helps in games like Valorant and Apex Legends, etc., because it carries into the higher frequencies a little bit. The lower bass is reduced slightly. You have same excellent mid-range, and the treble tuning is actually a little bit more favorable up here if you're trying to hear footstep sounds more, because it also takes away a little bit of the sharpness up top. This helps if you're trying to EQ it to an extent to get rid of some listening fatigue. If you have a headset that sounds too sparkly or sharp and you play with it for a long period of time, that can cause some listening fatigue and you want to turn it down because certain noises are too hard on your ears. So superhuman hearing at 30 does this. If you increase the superhuman hearing more to like 40 or 50, it reduces the bass even more and it will sound like it's a little bit brighter. So play around with that. The other thing to note is the footsteps version of superhuman hearing fills this area more between 3 and 5K. If you switch to legacy mode, it changes the bass the same way, but it doesn't lift these frequencies as much. So if you enable superhuman hearing at 30 for competitive play, just switch between legacy and footsteps and see if you prefer one over the other depending on what game you play. This is a game-changing feature, and it's really a perfect example of how effective something just like a subtle superhuman hearing add-on can do. So when it comes to actual gameplay and competitive stuff or casual, this is an amazing headset. I'm just going to be blunt. This is one of the better overall packages under 200 because it does a lot of things right. I do feel that it benefits greatly from those EQ changes, and if you don't like using superhuman hearing, here is my custom EQ that I did, and I would suggest playing with either one and see if you like one over the other. I think it sounded a little bit too thick and heavy out of the box. I wouldn't play with the default signature sound for any type of first-person shooter, but it was still nice and relaxing and easy to play with and game on for the casual gaming. If you're playing Astrobot or some other game that doesn't require the most competitive edge, just leave it on the stock sound signature and it's great, or maybe just try the vocal one. Otherwise, honestly, just pick the one that you like. For me, after a few changes and tweaks like that, it immediately became one of the best sub $200 gaming headsets I've used for FPS in the closed-back realm and wireless. I guess I should point out a few caveats here, because you have like the Drop PC38X wired analog headset, great sound, but has no sound isolation. So if your PC fan is making a bunch of noise, or if you have other environmental issues to consider, or you don't have a decent DAC to plug them into, anything that is clean, there's just different use cases with something like that. What's nice about this guy is because it's more comfortable and because I can EQ the sound a little bit, it traps in the sound, which reduces the noise floor. Passive noise isolation is quite good on this, so even though it does not have active noise cancellation, it does block out a decent amount of PC fan noise to a point where I don't have to play this as loud to still be competitive. My microphone quality was great too, and I don't feel like because the side tone was working well that I had to shout. So you get the benefit of having noise isolation from the fans, and then with the noise gate enabled, I could still talk at a comfortable volume, and that whole general player experience was quite nice. Now, I don't feel like it's going to quite approach the level of either of these headsets in different ways. The Atlas Air is so crazy comfortable. It sounds wide. It sounds really clean. It's a wonderful headset. It had some firmware issues at launch and some disconnect issues that people are still dealing with. So there's more firmware stuff going on with this guy that is continually improving the headset. latest firmware has fixed a lot of the volume issues I had in the past. It's also a bit louder than it was before. The Stealth Pro has a special place in my heart because it's the best wireless headset I've ever used for competitive gaming. It has excellent noise cancellation. You just hear everything. If you're playing like competitively and you want to pinpoint where things are coming from, not only is it clear, but it's very easy to discern where it's coming from. This is honestly, with those changes I said with superhuman hearing and all those minor tweaks, really, really close to this. It's almost like we'll say it's 90% there, which puts it above a lot of other headsets. Now, where ironically I prefer the 700 Gen 3 is the controls. This was my biggest gripe with the Stealth Pro, is you have this wheel, which is great, but for game to chat mix, you have to press and hold it, wait a few seconds, then you adjust it, then you wait again for it to resort back to volume. And these buttons are incredibly stiff to press. I love the traditional controls that the Stealth 700 Gen 3 gives me. It's faster. I'm more competitive. If I have to quickly turn down my friends because they're talking and I'm in a gulag or some situation where I'm just trying to hear a subtle footstep, I could very quickly turn them down. And that is a competitive edge. So there are things that the Stealth Pro does better, rightly so, because it's a higher price point. It's also cross-platform, and it also has, if I flip the mic down, a removable cover for swappable battery. So there's some unique selling points with this. It has a detachable mic, which is kind of cool. This one does not have a detachable mic, but the mic flips up to an extent out of the way, and this doesn't have noise cancellation. So I think you get different pros and cons, but the value of what this guy brings, especially with the ridiculous battery life of 80 hours, I like it a lot. So when it comes to casual gaming, I want to talk about some other things here because there's a lot of stuff to compare to. I mentioned that this used a 60mm driver, and it's not brand new because this affordable guy, the Recon 500, also uses a very similar looking driver. It's a 60mm driver. This is a super underrated headset under $100. So if you like everything I've said about this, you're like, man, that sounds great. I don't want to spend $200 and I don't want a wireless headset. Look into this because this is pretty cheap. It's like $75. You still get a detachable mic. It has a push button mute. It's analog, so you plug it into a controller or a PC headphone jack, but it sounds incredible. It's one of the best tuned sub $100 wired gaming headsets, and you still have these giant ear cups too. So something to not be slept on if you're looking for an affordable version of those big 60mm drivers. Now, I know I'm going to get asked about how this compares to a lot of other headsets under 200, and that's totally fair, but to be realistic, I can only fit so much in this long-winded video. So I will have a dedicated video about the sub $200 segment, or mid-range segment, if you will, which will likely include more than these. Now, I picked these because in addition to the 700 Gen 2 Max, these are some of my favorites I've tried more recently, especially under 200. You have the new Razer Kraken V4, which is a good headset. It has some pros and cons. It has game to chat mix on PC, pretty good mic, pretty good battery life, and the sound quality after EQ is actually really nice. I like it more than the Black Shark, and even though the Black Shark is marketed as more of the esports style headset, the Black Shark has an amazing mic, the best microphone under 200, but for actual listening experience, I prefer the new Kraken V4. You can always turn off the RGB if you're not a big fan. I think overall, the package of the 700 Gen 3 is a better value, but this is still a good option. It feels very lightweight and breathable, and the feature set has some pros and cons too with Razer Synops. If you're primarily a PC gamer, there's more to consider for the Kraken V4 because it has things like compression. So if you're trying to condense the audio mix to boost footsteps and reduce airstrike noise, that to me is one of the bigger selling points of the Kraken V4. However, the built-in EQ profiles are pretty bad, especially if you're playing on console, specifically Xbox or PS5, because this doesn't work on Xbox. So it's kind of an interesting one where the stars have to align for that to be the best pick. You have the HyperX Cloud 3 wireless. I still think this is an underappreciated headset. It's tuned well. It sounds great for music. It's comfortable, very unassuming. Detachable mic, 120-hour battery life. The microphone quality is excellent, but it too only works on PlayStation and PC. There's no way to use it on Xbox. And the feature set is crazy limited. There's no like simultaneous Bluetooth or anything like that. And you don't have all these other features we talked about for game to chat mix or customizing onboard sound with all these advanced capabilities. It's more like a plug and forget type headset with good battery life, comfort, and build quality. So if you're not chasing all the extra bells and whistles, it's a good value, especially when it goes on sale. The Asus ROG Delta 2 was a surprise hit. Microphone's fantastic. It has simultaneous Bluetooth. The features are nice again on the PC side, and it saves to the headset. There are things that save, which is great for PlayStation owners, but again, it doesn't work on Xbox, at least if you're trying to go wireless. You can use analog on it, and I like that this comes with 2 sets of pads. You have a sport fabric. This is the most comfortable closeback I've ever used for extended listening. It's the only one that approaches the Turtle Beach Atlas Air for comfort, but it is definitely better suited towards larger heads. So if you have a small head and you're concerned with it not falling off, this will get a little bit loose on you. Then you have the SteelSeries Nova 7X specifically, because the 7X is the only one that supports all 3 platforms wirelessly, and this also has onboard 10-band EQ, and it also has simultaneous Bluetooth. This is the only one that truly rivals the Stealth 700 Gen 3 in terms of overall features, sound performance, comfort, etc. Now this has comparable clamp force even, so it squeezes your head just as much. I upgraded the pads to Wicked Cushion Freeze pads because the stock pads are a little bit small, and I didn't like how my ears felt on the baffle after a while. So the price point increases a little bit. Retail is $180. With the pads, you're at $210, so you're actually higher than this. For less battery life, comparable microphone, different build quality. I talked about the hinges. Mine are starting to loosen up a little bit, but I've had this for, I don't know, a year and a half now, 2 years, and it's still working okay. It's not like I use it every day. But this too has excellent controls. You have master volume with a hard stop. You have game to chat mix here for Xbox, and this will work with Sonar on PC. Then you have the Bluetooth button. There's no Bluetooth volume control on the Nova 7, but you can adjust that on your mobile device to have separate volume as a whole. So personally, of all of these models here, and I'm not saying this because I'm reviewing it right now, I would pick the Stealth 700 Gen 3 as of now. The firmware thing I already kind of explained earlier. I'm not really happy about that bug, but they fixed the things I didn't like about the older 700, gave me some of the stuff I liked about the new headsets that have been out here. They made it more comfortable, and I still have my controls, my fast controls. And I guess the issue is if you need game to chat mix on PC and you also have an Xbox, then that kind of puts you back into the Nova 7 if you want game to chat control on the headset itself. This is, as you could tell, this is a hard decision. If you've been on the fence and you have no idea what to get, I feel like this is a safe bet. Is it going to be perfect for everybody? No. And I hope that even with all of this long-winded stuff, I helped make your decision easier. In summary, I think this is exactly what the Stealth 700 Gen 3 needed to be. They needed to match or improve everything from the older 700, with the big things being keeping the controls we liked, and this is improved further than already good controls from the old one. Greatly improved comfort, which was the biggest attractor, much better wireless stability. I still get all my platform support, and it's just, to me, this is what headsets need to be nowadays. It needs to have this stuff. It's missing analog and detachable mic, I guess, and you could nitpick here and there and things you like or value, but this is a damn good option. So hopefully you found the video helpful. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'd love to see you at the next one. With that being said, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.